All right, so now let's look at some examples. I'm going to show you a series of photos and just tell me if each photo represents an item composed of an element, a compound, or a mixture. Just remember, an element contains just one type of atom, it is at its purest form. A compound contains two or more different atoms joined together, and we talked about things like this being like table salt, water, it's also things like sugar, right? It's always made up of the same amount of atoms and they're chemically joined together. And then a mixture contains two or more different substances that are only physically joined together, kind of like a salad, right? They're not chemically combined together, they're just kind of laying together or laying on top of each other, just mixed together, but not chemically joined. A mixture can contain both elements and compounds. All right. So in the example of rocks, are rocks elements, compounds, or mixtures? What do you think? So yeah, these were mixtures made up of different pieces, right? Rocks are made up of all kinds of different things. So, copper, is copper an element, a compound, or a mixture? What do you think? Copper is an element. You'll find it on the periodic table under Cu, and it is pure. You cannot get any more, you cannot break copper down into anything more pure than copper. It's just an element. What about jelly beans just kind of laying on top of each other in a bowl? Are these elements, compounds, or mixtures? So this is a mixture, right? This is not. These jelly beans are not chemically combined, so you know it's not a compound, and you know that there's no element named jelly bean, right? That's not on the periodic table. So these are mixtures. Again, they can be easily separated. They're not chemically combined. They don't have to be in any specific ratio. So this is a mixture. Table salt. So, sorry, table sugar, and I almost gave it away with that hint. But is this an element, a compound, or a mixture? We didn't really talk about table sugar much, but we talked about something very similar. And so this is a compound. And I guess when I said similar, I didn't mean like they taste similar, but they're composed of like specific ratios. You're always going to find it with 12 carbons, 22 H's or hydrogens, 11 O's, which are oxygens. So a specific ratio, you have to chemically separate them. This is a compound. And so, what about this? A diamond. Is this an element, a compound, or a mixture? This one can be a little bit tricky. It is an element. And the reason why I say this is probably a little tricky is because there is no diamond element. A diamond is made of carbon. It's just the way that it is shaped that makes it so valuable, so shiny, sparkly, whatever you want to call it. But it's made of carbon. It's funny because pencil lead is also made out of carbon. But the thing that makes it different from a diamond is just how it was made and how it's like put together, how it's structured. What about tea? Some tea, right? You mix the tea up, what do you get? Is tea an element, a compound, or a mixture? And it's a mixture. I may have given it away by saying mix it all up, but yeah, this one is a mixture. And in this case, you would say it is a homogeneous mixture because if it was good, if it was mixed properly, then it would all be evenly distributed, right? That would be gross if all the sugar was at the bottom and all the water was at the top and all the tea was like in the middle. That would be kind of gross, right? So hopefully this was a homogeneous mixture where they stirred it completely and it was uniform throughout or it was the same throughout. Remember, that is homogeneous. Salt. We talked about this one quite a bit. What is salt? So salt is a compound, right? NaCl. Remember, it's always in that ratio NaCl 1 to 1, 1 Na to 1 Cl. It's chemically combined together. And when they're separate, the different sodium and chlorine, when they're separate, they are very different than when they're put together, right? So this is a compound. What about neon gas? Neon, I barely mentioned it briefly earlier, but what do you think neon gas is? Neon gas is an element. If you look on the periodic table, it's actually all the way to the right in the column of the noble gases, and neon is an element. It's a pure element. So I mentioned this a couple times. What is a salad? A salad is a mixture. It's just different pieces put together, right? They're not chemically combined. They're just kind of laying on top of each other. And they all retain their separate properties. So, unlike NaCl, where they're different, and then we put them together and they make something completely different, when you separate these, the lettuce will still be the lettuce, the cucumber still the cucumber, and that sort of thing.